What is going on, my fellow Summit Chasers? I know we usually don't go live right now, so I'm throwing some of you for a loop on a Friday at noon Eastern. Crazy, but we have a very good reason for it, and I have a very great guest, somebody that you probably have actually, I think you've seen before. I did an interview with him, I guess a few months ago now, when we were promoting our young professionals. I can talk, I promise. I know it's morning here, but I can talk. Our Young Professionals Leadership Summit in Toronto, Canada, coming up on October 19th. And we talked to Greg a little bit about kind of his experience, what you can expect from him at the event. And we're very, very excited about it. Now, I know that we were supposed to have a few other people on today, but we had a few emergencies. They had very good reasons for not being here. But we're going to tackle this. We go forward no matter what. Me and Greg are warriors. He's in his wine room actually right now filming this. So, you know, he's serious. So I absolutely love it. But really quickly, if you haven't yet, go get your tickets for the Young Professionals Leadership Summit, October 19th, Toronto. If you can't make it into Toronto, if that's a long drive for you, or maybe you're in the States, maybe you're in Guatemala. If you're in Guatemala, stay there. It's beautiful there. But maybe you just can't make it, and that's totally fine. We're doing it virtual. We're doing it virtual as well. So you can watch it anywhere, whether you're in Guatemala or not. You can watch it anywhere. And we really wanted to price this event. A lot of people, they see these events, they see these big conferences and that kind of stuff, and they have all these speakers and then a great venue and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, I'm not going to be able to afford that. I'm just moving into a leadership position, or I just became a manager, or I'm just getting promoted to the next stage in my leadership career. That's fine. This event is literally for you. We designed it for you. We're not trying to make a profit out of this. Anything that's over cost is going to a nonprofit, Parents for Education in Toronto. It's a great cause. It's $60 for an in-person ticket, which is, and for the value, is probably the best investment you could possibly make in yourself. So $60 for in-person, $20 for the virtual. And whether you get the virtual or the in-person ticket, you will have access to the video for the content for a lifetime. So you can go back, you can rewatch Greg's talk, my talk, Dr. Nathabu's, Amna's, the panel discussions, all that kind of stuff. Take your notes, and you can do it as you're kind of going through your leadership journey. So go to YPLSummit.com. That is YPLSummit.com to go get your tickets. And do so quickly, because the in-person tickets, especially if you're going to do in-person, because they're starting to fill up, which is great to see. But YPLSummit.com, get your tickets. Now, today, we're going to go through some case studies. Now, we had a bunch of questions that were sent in from all of you, and they were amazing questions. Awesome. However, if there's one thing that I like to be more tangible, more objective, more realistic, more real. So we have one of these case studies were sent in by somebody a while ago when I was doing some case study breakdown shows, which I'm going to start doing again. The other two, going to be completely honest with you, were done beautifully by ChatGPT, the brand new version of it, which takes time to think. It's really, really cool. But nonetheless, these are real case studies realistic case studies that we're going to break down and give you insight into how to overcome some of these challenges and some of these scenarios I've been in myself. So they're very, very realistic, and they're very determinative of whether you're going to be successful as a leader or not. Come from, how do I lead meetings? Okay, I was an individual contributor. I was just worried about myself. Now I'm worried about 9 other people. And these 9 other people have very different skills and assets than I do. Some of their jobs don't even look similar than mine did. How do I strategically think of how do I push this team forward? So before we get into all that, I want to introduce the man, the myth, the legend himself. And yes, that is Beer Steins to his right. And I'm a big fan of Beer Stein. So I want to welcome to the stage, Mr. Gregory Kearley. Is it Greg or Gregory? Gregory.
I go by Greg.
Greg Kearley. There we go. How you doing, Greg?
I'm great. How are you, Zach?
I'm doing fantastic. So really quickly, I know that I'll shove everybody over to the interview that we did together, which was, again, a couple of months ago now. But tell everybody really quickly, you got 30 seconds, clock starting now. Tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah. So I retired from full-time corporate maybe about 5 years ago, been consulting ever since, but I'm an industry veteran of the utility industry. I ran operations for electric and gas utilities all across the U.S., in the New York metro area, Chicago, San Francisco, and then up at Hydro One in Toronto for a couple of years. I was the chief operating officer. So loved every minute of it. I've been leading and managing and trying to lead and manage people, thousands of people for over 3.5 decades. Loved every minute of it. And it's going to be great to be part of the Young Professionals Leadership Summit.
Yeah, no, we're very, very thankful to have you. Greg's going to be one of the first ones up in the day. So you want to make sure you get there early, get comfortable, get your notebooks out and all that kind of good stuff. And we're going to leave some room for questions after for him, because he does have some amazing experience and he's a great speaker. What was part of the biggest, maybe something that's either surprised you or something that maybe something that, yeah, I'm going to stick with that. Something that surprised you when you moved from being in it, you're leading the teams, you're in a company, to consulting. What was something that you saw maybe that surprised you?
Yeah, well, that's a big learning. I had a few colleagues who gave me some insight, but it's funny when you're on the outside looking in and you reach out back to some of your former colleagues or companies and you want to say, and whether it's you want to conduct business or offer some assistance, et cetera, it's a different reception altogether, because you're now an outsider. Look, when you're on the inside, you're trying to manage budget, people, time, you're moving, you're trying to execute. And now you've got a consultant calling you from the outside. And even though it's me and I had relationships, people might not get back to you. People that you knew for a while as well, and you had a good relationship with, and you're saying, wow, I'm not getting any traction. They're not even responding.
Yeah.
So you could make, someone advised me, a former colleague, you could make 100 calls. And you know what? If you get a handful of responses back, you're doing well. And I was like, no, that can't be the truth. But I have found that. But, I understand it, because now you put yourself in that mindset. Imagine how many other consultants or others are calling in to that person or that company, trying to offer help, trying to offer services. And they're trying to discern, hey, what do I do? I'm trying to run the business every day. Yeah, I need a little help. And I'm getting bombarded right now. So, who do I go with? What do I need right now? Right. And offer me that best value. So, you know what? You got to stay persistent. People that you do have a good relationship will ultimately, I think, get back to you. And many of them have. I continue those relationships today. And at the right time, they'll bring you in to offer some guidance to others or help me work on developing the team. Tell us about your experience and how you can help us here. So,
yeah, it's that's a different feeling, because you know what they need on the outside, because either you've been there or you can see it from a third party kind of perspective. Like, that they need what you have, right? But again, in their shoes, they're worried about the day to day. They're getting bombarded with all these other options, and they know they need help too. But to your point, they have all these options. They're trying to decipher what's best for them. It's like you're tired at the end of the day. You got your popcorn out, and you're trying to pick something on Netflix to watch. You're like, what kind of mood am I in? What do I need right now? And then you end up like 2 hours goes by, and you're still trying to pick something. And it just doesn't work. The popcorn's gone at that point. Might as well just go to bed and not pick anything. And a lot of times that's what ends up happening in that world. Was there anything that you maybe surprised you as with companies that you have worked with as a consultant that you see now that you have that kind of objective third party views, or anything that kind of from a leadership perspective that you saw that you're like, well, this goes on a lot, or was it all pretty much stuff you've seen before?
A lot of it, I guess, is what is probably in the latter, what I've seen before. Although I will tell you now that, I think about my 2 or 3 primary clients that I have right now. What I love about them is they do value my experience. So, right, if you have any kind of years of experience, right, you have a depth in a particular topic, whether it's a technical topic or leadership or managerial, you've got value. And once they see that value, right, if they hear you, they understand what you maybe achieved in the work that you did, how you got the results you got, how you got them, et cetera. Now they start to pick your brain. Hey, can you share some of that wisdom with us? So I got to tell you, it's very rewarding for the 2 or 3 primary clients I have right now. When I make a recommendation, or when they say, hey, Greg, can you share your experience on that? I got to tell you, they listen. And then they act on it. I mean, it's pretty awesome when they say, hey, you got a lot of expertise in this that we don't. We value that. And then all of a sudden, you're seeing over the next couple of weeks and months, they're actually implementing exactly what you recommended. And you're like, hey, that's pretty cool.
Imagine that. Yeah. And then they start to see results, and it feels really good. It feels really, really good.
And it reminded me of, I just saw an old clip of Steve Jobs. when he was at Apple and he was talking about consultants. He said, look, he says, the problem with consultants is many of them at times will make a recommendation and they're not there to see the recommendation and the implementation through. Mm-hmm. And they don't get to see the result. They don't get to see it, feel it, and touch it, right? Whether it's good or bad. So they don't own it. Mm-hmm. They don't have accountability and ownership into the result. Now, so I take that to heart in terms of the consulting that I'm doing and others, right? Mm-hmm. That I believe what he's saying, right? And for me, I can say, no, I lived it.
Yeah,
I own that. I own that every day. I was responsible for results my entire corporate career, right? Here's the numbers you need to achieve, right? Here's the metrics, here's the targets, et cetera. And you were able to live it. So you know what it feels like. And you can share that with others to say, no, I'm not just recommending. Let me tell you, I recommended. And here's at times when I got a great result. And here's at times where it went off track. And here's why. So, you're giving them the learnings both ways, because nobody ever hits all their targets every year. They don't. Yeah.
Well, that's a good lesson in leadership in general, right? Because and that's true. I could go down a rabbit hole as far as like what's wrong with most coaches and consultants. There's so many out there that get an MBA and then never really technically work in the corporate space like you did, and they go right into consultants or consultancy, or they do for a very short period of time at one place and then move into consultancy. Or there's coaches that read 48 Laws of Power and think they're coaches too. But is in leadership, you don't just tell people, okay, this is what you should do, right? This is how you come up with the conclusion to find out how you should do the thing and what you should do. So the defining that and creating that and fostering that critical thinking to create the thing that is going to eventually be successful, rather than just handing them something that was successful somewhere else. Yeah, sort of thing. Does that make sense? Am I making sense right now? Okay.
You are.
I wasn't sure. It's still early here, but we want to, for some of these case studies that I'm going to bring up here in a second, that's what we want to talk through, right? And I'm talking to the audience right now, where especially when you're at the leadership summit, the Young Professional Leadership Summit, a big portion of what we're going to be doing is not just going to be up there on stage. And I say this a lot at most conferences. There's somebody on stage. You're there with your notebook and you take notes, you give them a clap, and then they leave, and then they introduce somebody else. You take your notes, you clap, and then by the fifth person, you're like, I don't know what the first person said, and I don't know what any of my notes even mean anymore, and I'm out of it. I don't know. How am I going to take this and do something with it? We're not going to do that. We're going to be challenging you. We're going to be sharing. You're going to have to come up with your own conclusions. You're going to have to we're going to help you foster your own critical thinking to come up with the right conclusions, to come up with not even the right ones, but the best possible decisions that you can with the information that you have on hand, and deciphering that information. What information should you be looking at? And then out of the information you do look at, how can I utilize this to create a decision, or to make a decision and create a result, obviously, from there. So when we're going through these case studies, that's what we want to try to do. Is these individuals, again, there's a few of them that are a little bit of AI involved, which is totally fine, but it's gonna hit the mark either way. But these are great examples of individuals who are going to be in the same position that you are, or have been in the same position that you have been, and the same struggles that you are going through. So let's try this first one out here. All right. So I was promoted to lead the customer service team at a telecommunications company. When I was just worried about myself, I had always exceeded my own metrics. But now I am responsible for a team of 9 people. I quickly realized that hitting team goals is a very different approach. I needed to think much more strategically about how to improve the performance of a whole team, but I'm not sure where to start, as they all have much different skill sets and even slightly different jobs than I had. Where do I start? Where do they start, Greg?
Yeah, this is great. This is the classic. I was an individual contributor working with a team of people, and now I'm the boss, so to speak, right? And I've got people working for me. This requires a mindset shift. So you're no longer the individual contributor, because look, you're going to come in the next day when you've been given lead responsibilities, right? Or a manager or that kind of title. And you're going to think that you're going to want to do things the way you did the day before. It requires a mindset shift. I'm not the doer anymore. I'm responsible for the doers, right? Now they all have individual tasks, and I have to make sure that they all get those done in coordination, right? And for the ultimate purpose of achieving the team result. So It's a mindset shift. You got to think, I'm a manager now. I'm not just responsible for me. I'm responsible for everything. So it's important to understand, what group are you leading? What department are you leading? What is the purpose of that team? What are the goals of the team? So, I think it alluded to everybody had kind of different metrics and whatnot. So I'd start to ask, why does everybody have different metrics? Let's start at the top. What is the department responsible for? What are the group goals and metrics, right? Because those ultimately need, if we achieve those goals, they'll support the overall vision and goals of the company. So make sure our team goals and our department goals, right, are aligned with and support the vision of the company. And once they do, then you can start talking with these 9 direct reports and say, all right, so what are your metrics? And are they linked and aligned now with the department? Do they support the achievement of these departmental goals? Because if they don't, why are we worried about that? Why are you working on those activities? And why do you have those metrics as individual metrics and then targets that you're working on? Because they're not in support of. So again, it's kind of a fresh look, step back and say, what are we here? What's our purpose? Do we support the vision of the company? What are the goals of the department? And let's make sure they're aligned. So it may require some adjustments, right? You say, well, wait a minute. And then you got to go to your boss and say, hey, look, here's what I found. Our goals aren't necessarily aligned. I'm not sure if the prior person who had this position shared this with you, but here's what we had. I met with the team and we revised some things. You know what? Here's some departmental goals that we think are more reflective, right? And more supportive of where we're going as a company in the larger department. So, as a start, you've got to kind of do that. And beyond that, you've got 9 new people. You've got to meet with each of them, understand their perspective, listen, share your expectations. So that's all part of what I call a plan, right? Whenever you get into a new position, my ultimate advice would be is go in with a plan. I called it a 100-day plan. So, I did this, Zach, forever when I was a lower level and middle manager coming up in the ranks. And then when I became an executive for the first time, I actually put it down in writing and I called it my 100-day plan. And I literally wrote it out. Here's what I want to do over the first 100 days. And I got this concept from, I didn't invent it, right? I stole it from others. I was an avid reader, right? And I read many business books and they had this concept of this planning as well. The first 90 days, first 100 days. Point is, go in with a plan. You'll accomplish much more at the end of that planning period than if you didn't have a plan. So go in with a plan. And part of that plan is going to meet people where they're at, listen to them, tell them about you, right? Here's what I value. Here's how I conduct business. These are my principles. These are my values. Here's what I believe in, right? Here's my experiences, et cetera. Tell me about you. Right now you're building a relationship with each of your direct reports right off the bat. And they're saying, wow, this guy or this gal, they're personable. They really want to get to know me. So you're building a relationship, you're learning about them, what their skills are, and you're seeing how they fit into the bigger picture. And say, hey, tell me what's working with the department. Tell me what's not. Where have we had problems, et cetera? So you're assessing, you're observing, you're kind of hearing the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you're putting all this together as part of your plan, right? And then a few weeks go by and a few months go by, and you get back together with the team and you say, here's what you told me. Here's what I've heard. Here's what I've observed. Now let's get together as a team and put a new plan going forward. What's our vision? What are our goals? Where are we headed? How does everybody fit in? You may find that not everybody's in the right job, that they all have skill sets, but maybe they're in the wrong job. Maybe they need to be in a different job. Maybe you need to do a little restructuring on the team, et cetera. So anyway, I'll pause now. I threw out a lot of stuff there, but
that was really good. So let's see if we can break that down. So let's talk. So one of the things in here that this individual was saying, this individual, is to start thinking more strategically. So let's start there, because you have to set the North Star. You have to set out where the North Star is. You have to set the direction of where are we taking the boat, right? What direction are we going? First, right? So strategically, so from what you said, it's almost like you're an individual contributor. You had activities that led to a result, a set of activities that led to a specific result. And you obviously you did well because you're in this position now. So add another layer into that. What's the result you're trying to achieve for your department, right? And then what are the individual goals that your people have to hit that will contribute in alignment with that goal? And then the activities from there, right? So it's kind of like you're adding another another layer onto it. And then you said even to really think kind of big picture. And I like the concept of when you're in that leadership position, you almost want to think of yourself like an entrepreneur. That's where Mike is. I am an entrepreneur, and that's who I work with. So that's where my head goes. Think of yourself as like an intrapreneur. I think that's what Patrick Bet-David, he coined that term, an intrapreneur. So we want to create this success for the company. Here's the company's goals, right? And then here's the goals of my department, and that those goals need to be in alignment with the goals of the company, right? Because the one thing with strategy, and this is what a lot of people think strategy is, they think like, let's set a goal and then throw a bunch of random tactics at a wall and hope that one of them, gets us there. And that's never how it works. You want your actions and activities to be coherent with each other, kind of like a domino effect. You want this goal, this activity, this tactic, you want it to create strength and leverage with the next kind of action in line, activity in line. So it's adding that extra layer, right? Let's start there. So what are the goals of our department that are in line with the company, and why are these goals in line with the company goals? And then from there, it's okay, is what we're currently doing in line with and coherent in achieving that goal? And you're saying if it's not, right, then obviously you're going to have conversations. Okay, what are you currently doing? What are your activities? What was kind of the expectations set with prior management and that kind of stuff? And then you want to kind of get those activities and goals in line with, okay, how am I going to put this together? How am I strategically going to put these, give these goals, hand out these goals, and then related activities to achieve those goals that will align with each other to achieve this one specific goal? I might have confused everybody even more, but I think you get it. So where would you suggest somebody start there? Would you suggest them find out where they're at currently? Like, what are the goals currently? What are we currently doing to achieve those goals? Okay, they're not in line, then have the conversations, or should I start having those conversations right away?
Yeah, so a couple of things, and you reminded me of something that certainly is part of the entire conversation. So you're new in that job. You've just recently been promoted. You're the boss. You're a leader now of people. One of the first things you need to do is go meet with your boss and ask him or her straight out. So what has this department historically done well? What do you expect of us? Have we been hitting our targets? Do we have the right goals in place? Because bring them into the first meeting with them. Here are the goals for the group. Do these line up with helping you achieve success at your level and where the company's going? So get the expectations from the boss, the good, the bad, and the ugly again. Where are we doing well? What have we historically fell down on, right? And, here's how we're measuring things, and here are the goals. Does this line up with you or not? You're going to get some great feedback. You bring that back to the team and you say, okay, let's have that discussion, because here's the feedback I got from the boss. Here's what all of you are telling me. Let's make sense of it now. And this isn't going to come together in the first meeting. It's not. You are in what I would call the assessment phase early on. You're assessing. You're just getting all kinds of input from the boss, from customers, from your employees, what's working, what's not. And ultimately, you will put together a plan of action. It might take a few weeks. It might take a couple of months. But transitioning to this strategy piece of that, I can tell you that I've done it a number of times. And I got it from others as well. I had some good mentors and good bosses. You can put a strategic plan on one sheet of paper. People make it so complicated, right? Once you understand from the boss, here's the expectations, right? Here's the goals and the metrics. Okay. What are the strategic initiatives? Start to answer the questions. What are the strategic initiatives that are going to help us achieve those targets on those, right? And the targets set around those metrics. Great. How are we going to, what are the initiatives now? And what are the actions under each that are going to help us get there, right? Because there could be 3 or 4 different initiatives under each of the 4 or 5 strategy areas that you got to focus on. And how is that going to help us? What result might it produce? How are we going to measure it, et cetera? So literally there's like 3 or 4 pieces of it, right? Mm-hmm. The strategic initiative, the critical success factors, the metrics, the targets, and what you hope to achieve out of that. So you can put it on one piece of paper. It's not easy, right? It'll take, again, a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, but you're gathering input from all kinds of parties. And then you're ultimately getting, the team on board. And that that quite frankly can be the most difficult part. And I know there's another case study coming where we'll actually get into some of that, the dysfunctions of a team and whatnot. But you're trying to align the team around strategic goals and strategic initiatives to help the department and the company achieve its objectives.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. That, you know, a lot of people, they see it in movies or whatever it is. It gets glamorized. This whole like strategic vision that I have to create, or strategic plan I have to create, and think, okay, I need to create a pamphlet that's 18 pages long to achieve a goal, sort of thing. And even if it's just you have 9 people on your team, it's really easy to get that overcomplicated, you know. And there's as far as strategy goes, I mean, it really boils down like so. There's a strategy kernel is the concept, right? A coherent diagnosis of the problem, diagnosis of the challenges, diagnosis of the situation that you're in. So get all the data together, talk to your boss, all that kind of stuff, and then create guiding policies that simplify the challenges, and then back those up with coherent actions. And the coherent, again, being that they're not just a bunch of random stuff thrown against the wall, tactics and stuff thrown against the wall. They're coherent in the fact that one leads into the other. You're not wasting resources. Right? So it doesn't need to be. I think that's a great point. It doesn't need to be complicated. Now, I was going to ask you another question. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, all the fancy consultants, they're going to tell you that, you know, they're going to produce a strategy document that's this thick, right?
Oh God, don't get me, Greg. That's another box.
It makes you want to vomit. I'm telling you, I didn't stand for it. Someone early on showed me a draft of that strategic plan on one page, and I'll tell you, I stayed with it for 20, 25 years, and that's what we produced, right? And so when somebody asks, so what's your department about? What's your whole strategy? What's your plan? You can literally give them a laminated one sheet piece of paper, right? And say, here it is, all on one page. Now, it might be pretty busy, right? But if you want to know what we're all about, this is what we do every day. Here's our metrics. Here's our targets. Here's our initiatives. Here's the results. Here's the actions we take.
Yeah, well, that's big. And the other thing with strategy too, when you're coming up with these plans, don't just set a bunch of goals. Goals are not strategy. It's how are you going to achieve those goals? Right. That's the strategy, and it's leveraging strength against opportunity and weakness, right? So that's brilliant. Okay, I was going to ask about the whole team thing, but I feel like we're gonna get into that when we talk about the dysfunctional part of a team here. And I don't know if this is also this is the real one. This is one that somebody actually had sent in, hence the expletives. So I was brought in as a new head of customer support for a type of subscription-based software business. My former boss had left. I'm assuming that means something else. After a few years of letting the team go to, you know what that says. The team was notorious for slow response times and bad customer satisfaction scores. On top of that, disturbances. I love the quotations in this one. Disturbances between our team members was really bad. Okay, so their team wasn't getting along. Many openly resented each other, and there were always complaints of unfair workloads. I have a huge task ahead of me. Where do I start, and how do I turn around the culture and performance of this team? Dysfunctional team. Everyone's at each other's throat. The former boss clearly left, so that they were let go, most likely. And you have a big mess to pick up. Where do you start? Where do you start here, Greg?
Yeah. So look, this is going to stay with. I'll give you a couple of different ideas here, but this is all going to stay within have a plan. What's your 100-day plan? So you're the new head of customer support. So what are you going to do in the first 100 days of your administration, so to speak? You know what? Go out on a listening tour. There's a specific action you can take. So how many facilities do you have? How many people do you have? Are they all in one place, one building, or do you have a number of remote locations? Everybody knows a new boss just arrived. Hey, there's a new person. You saw the announcement, right? It came out. Well, if you don't show up for 2 weeks, they're going to say, what the heck is this? Is this called visible leadership? So I give you an example. I hired a director a few years back when I was an executive at one of the utilities I worked at. He was all excited. I knew him from another company. He came in. He was all excited. I was excited to have him. He was a gold mine, and he's still there, and he's been promoted. He's doing great. But 2 weeks go by, and I just do a check-in with him, and I call him, and I say, hey, so how's it going? Great. Hey, you've been to your control center location yet? Where I knew he had a lot of people. Mm-hmm. He said, no, I've been doing this. I've been doing that. I said, really? You've been here 2 weeks. The bulk of your people are in that location, and you haven't gone to see him yet. And there was just silence on the phone. I said, what do you think? Because I gave you an opening to come in this company. I was just going to coddle you. I said, get off your butt and get to that location. Those people know a new boss came in and they haven't even seen you or heard from you yet. I said, you should have had a call with them on day one. Hey, just a conference, a 30-minute introductory call. Hey, here's who I am. I'll be out to see you in the next couple of weeks. And now you're setting the stage for building credibility as well. Now you actually go out to see them in a week or two and you said, hey, remember when I said I was going to come out? Well, here I am. And you do a little bit of a listening tour. They want to hear from you. You're the new boss. So you set expectations, say, look, here's what I'm about. Here's what my experience is. Here's my general expectations, right? I just arrived. And here's how I do business, right? Here's my leadership values, my managerial principles. This is how I conduct business. Now, let me hear from you. What's going on here? What does this location do? What are your jobs? What's going well? What's not going well? So there's that listening tour. You're gathering input. You're gathering feedback. You're finding out all about your department and these players, right? And who's providing input, who's angry, right? Maybe who's constructive. Now, listen, the angry ones aren't always bad because you know what? They may be just frustrated. They may have said, I've been trying to get my ideas across for years and nobody listened. And now they're just frustrated, right? So they come across as pissed off. But you know what? Within all that drama at times, there are always golden nuggets. So you're the boss. You have to take a lot of heat. Filter that out and say, where's the golden nugget of what that person is trying to communicate? Because if you can act on that and do something, that person who's angry might be your biggest advocate in the future. They might say, holy cow, I've been dealing with this issue forever. And this person came in and they're actually trying to do something about it. They listened to me and they put into place what I suggested. Man, that's gold. That is solid gold, if you can do something like that.
What do you think some of the misconceptions are around that? Because there's going to be some people that listen to that and they're like, okay, I'm going to go talk to everybody. I'm going to listen to their problems and I'm going to do something about it. There's a fine line between all these people that are pissed off and they're like, no one's ever listening to me. We need to change this. We need to do that. I've been saying this for years, blah, 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 blah. Taking that in and they're like, okay, I want all these people to like me and respect me and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to do all these things that they're asking me to do. I'm going to try to do everything. What would be some advice or strategies to filter some of those things out? Because some of it, again, like you said, some of them are going to be valid. And then there's also going to be a feeling of, okay, I need these people to like and respect me. So I'm going to feel like I need to do all these things, right, to get them on my side, so to speak. So how do you filter that?
This is great. I love the fact that you brought up this like and respect. So, and people may not agree with this, but I can tell you this is what I have found to be effective through other bosses and mentors over the years and in my own career. Your job as a leader and a manager is not to be liked. It's to earn respect and credibility. The best compliment you can ever get from your people is, right? I had a boss who listened to me, respected me, treated me with respect, listened to my ideas, put things in place. He or she was tough. They were hard, right? They were all about values and discipline, but they were true to their word. And I'd go work for that person anytime, right? Because that boss made me a better person. So your job isn't to be liked. So you know what? Be honest with them right up front. I've done this throughout my career. Hey, folks, these are my expectations. Some of you may agree, some of you may not. Look, there's 50 people in the room. If I went around the room and asked your opinion on this, you think I'd get all 50 of you agreeing with your opinion on this particular topic? It's not going to happen. So my job as a leader is to take all that input in, understand where the company's going and what my responsibility is in terms of managing this department, and make the best decisions I can. And sometimes those decisions are going to make you happy, and sometimes they're not. But my job isn't to make you happy. Remember who we are. This is the company. This is our goals. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to satisfy customers. We're trying to be productive. We're trying to be low cost, whatever the goals are of the company, right? Here's the high quality products and services we're trying to provide. And guess what? I need your input. You are closer to the work. So you're going to help you got the best ideas. So I would be a fool not to listen to you. So that's why I'm here. I want to get all your input. But remember, a lot of you have different ideas. And it won't be about satisfying everybody, but here's what I commit to you. I'm going to tell you the decision I made, the input I took, why I made it, and why I went this way and not necessarily the way you were thinking I was going to go on this. Now, we're going to try that. If it's not effective in the next 3 months, 6 months, year, maybe there's a course correction, right? Maybe we change direction on that. But what I will do is come back on a regular basis, and this is key, another key aspect of leadership. Come back on a regular basis and communicate. Here's what I said last month. Here's how it's going so far. And you come back every month on a regular basis. They don't just want to see you one time, one and done. They want to see you on a regular basis. That's how you build credibility, right? You're going to say, this is what I said I was going to do. This is what I did. You want to build credibility. You want to achieve some wins early on, some small wins. And in the end, you want to achieve some big wins. And then you want to go out and you want to recognize people and praise them. Hey, you gave those ideas. You helped achieve this. Look at your numbers in this location and what you were able to achieve. Let me tell you how that fits into the big picture and how you helped us achieve the higher level goals of this department this year. I mean, you're going to put people on cloud nine when that happens, right? So there's so much in there, right, about expectations and respect and building credibility and giving recognition and praise. It's all great leadership and managerial stuff, you know?
Yeah. No, I was at an event in Fort Lauderdale just a year ago now. And the guy who was speaking asked a really, Patrick Bet-David, he asked a really interesting question. And he said, everybody put up your hand if you have somebody in your life that you love. Everybody, obviously everybody, put your hand up. And he's like, okay, I want you to keep your hand up if out of all those people that you love, you respect all of them and their ability or their pursuit of success. Like if you truly respect their pursuit of success and their work ethic and that type of stuff, and everybody put their hand down, like those aren't two of the same things. Like one isn't better or worse than the other, though they're two different things. And so going forward, when you're the leader, that aspect of you should be respected rather than loved and liked and that kind of stuff it's really interesting for some people, because when they hear that, they're thinking like, okay, I need to be a hard ass. I need to like perform. I need to like I want everybody to look up to me or like fear me or in some sort of way, like you know what I mean, like a dog respects its master sort of thing. What would your advice be to them to kind of how do you toe that line? Like where do you like, obviously you said like have those conversations, open communication, that kind of stuff, but immediately how do you set that expectation immediately? Like in that first conversation, it's like, I'm not here to do everything that you all these gripes that you have. I'm not here to just cater to all that kind of stuff. But like what is that like? Is there a sentence that you would say? Is there like some like what would you say?
Well, yeah, I think of a lot of things when you kind of share that example. And it's funny, my daughter shared something with me that's going on in her workplace as well. That's kind of similar. You're in a difficult spot now when you become the boss because the relationship has changed with the people that you work with. You may not think it has, but it has, because they view you differently. You're the boss now.
Yeah.
You're responsible for my raise, my performance review. I think we talked about this a little bit on the previous live session as well. And so they're going to think of you, maybe I'm not going to share as much with you as I used to, right? Maybe my relationship, we used to go out and on Friday night and maybe grab a drink quick, right? Or a little bite to eat here and there. But boy, I'm not sure if I should do that now. I'm not sure if I should tell you everything because, who knows? They feel a little apprehensive about that, right? Because who knows what you're going to do with it, right? Because it's a different relationship, right? You're not a peer anymore. So don't lose sight of that fact. Be careful about thinking, the other thing that comes to mind, be careful about thinking that the way to achieve things, and look, we all want to be liked. We do. I'll even admit it, right? It's great to be liked, but that's not your primary purpose. If you're a jerk, people are going to know you're a jerk. Okay. If you're untrustworthy, if you're unethical, they're going to see it pretty quick that you're a liar or a cheat or whatever else. But if you're a good person and you're honest and you do what you say you're going to do, you're going to build credibility. There's no doubt about it. But you do need to draw a line between wanting to be liked and doing the job. People think that they can befriend people and that's their way to being liked and getting them to be more productive, et cetera. It is not. It is not. I remember I was playing golf with one of my direct reports on a weekend, and it was great. And somewhere in the middle of the round, I leaned over to him. I said, this is fantastic, man. We're having a ball. I said, come Monday morning, right? If I have to, I'm going to kick your butt. So don't think this lets you off the line. Not in so many words, right? But don't think that our friendly and social relationship off the job absolves you from your responsibility and accountability on the job. That is not an easy thing to do. It really isn't. But people will respect you, right? When you have a standard And when you when you have discipline and order around things, right? They're going to have plenty of opportunities to show you what they can do, to contribute, to achieve, and you're going to recognize them. You're going to recognize them with praise, maybe a promotion, maybe compensation and rewards. And they're going to see, wow, they're tough on me, but they're also recognizing my contribution as well. There's no greater reward than that. That's better than, going out and having the best social relationship with them on a Friday night as well. So, yeah. Just some of the thoughts around that.
No,
I don't want to lose sight of the person who turned that case study in, right? So they had, I think, 9 direct reports, and I at least wanted to close out on that. And it was kind of a dysfunctional team. Is that what I kind of read there?
Yeah. Many open, and they resented each other. A lot of them resented each other.
Yeah. So look, this is a huge challenge. I've walked into teams like that, and in the end, you're still going to listen to them. You're going to do the same steps that we talked about. Understand expectations from the boss. Bring it back to the team. You're going to have a group meeting with everyone, and you're going to hear from them at once. And then you're going to have individual direct report meetings as well. All right. And you're going to start to build that relationship. Tell me what works. Tell me what doesn't. Tell me what you've been contributing. You want to put them right back on their heels right away too, in terms of expectations. Look, here's what I expect of you. If you think you can come in every day and just gripe at me about all the things that are wrong, let me tell you, that's not going to work. Yeah. I need people who are going to contribute positively and not just be a complainer with no solution. So I want to know, how are you contributing? And don't you worry about a thing, because if you are contributing, I will heap lavish praise on you. I will. And if you're really contributing the way you are, and you're being productive and constructive, don't you worry, you'll be a solid member of the team. But if this kind of persistent activity goes on, right, and I don't see the value you're offering, you may not be long for the team. And, people sometimes, look, the statistics say most people are conflict avoiders. People don't like to share bad news with people. Sometimes they're afraid to sit down with someone and say, you know what, you're not meeting expectations. You're not doing the job. But your job as a manager and a leader, one of the best things you can do is go sign up for a training course on conflict avoidance. Because you need to have the tough conversations at times. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, when you reset expectations with people and you say, here's what I expect of you, they will deliver. They'll change their attitude. If you hold the line and you're optimistic and you come through with what you model the behaviors you want as the leader, other people will see it and they'll respond to it. Will you get a straggler or two at times that is constant resistance and doesn't want to play? You will. And guess what? After a few months, you say, hey, this isn't working out. You may have to have the tough conversation and let them go, or give them one more chance somewhere else. Say, look, you know what? Maybe this isn't the right role for you. Maybe there's a job over here that, you should consider. So
I love it. Yeah, we're kind of combining those two case studies. Dysfunctional team, unfair workloads. Let's talk to the boss, talk to your boss, understand the strategic vision, understand what they're currently doing, what are their activities, and are those activities and goals in line with the goal of the department? And then if it's not, then start having those conversations. No, I love that. I think we rounded that one out really well. I appreciate that big time. All right, last one. These case studies, you can get talking about them forever. I had been fighting for this promotion for years as a manager for the company I'd been with forever. While I crushed as an individual contributor and had been part of all the meetings with leadership, I'm very quickly realizing that leading meetings was much harder than it looked. My first few meetings as lead felt chaotic. Topics jumped all over the place. Team members talked over one another. And by the end, I wasn't even sure what the next steps were. I felt like I got steamrolled. The next few were not any different. What do I do? What does this person do to lead more effective meetings, Greg?
This is awesome. When I read this, I think of a movie, one of my favorite movies, at least 20 years old, What Women Want, with Mel Gibson.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And Helen Hunt is in there. She's the new creative director, and she's having her first meeting with the team, and they're giving her all kinds of silly and stupid ideas. And she's saying to herself, her self-talk is, boy, I should have asked for more money. I mean, so you're sitting in these first couple of meetings and it is chaotic, and you're saying, holy cow, maybe I should have asked for more money to get this job. Look, this happens a lot. So here's the simple, it's easy peasy, as they say. There's two things you need to do to have an effective meeting. You need to have a structured agenda, and you need to set ground rules. Okay, you want two specific actions: an agenda, a written agenda, and written ground rules. So you know what? Have the first meeting or two, and if it's chaotic, it's probably a good thing. Then you come in the third meeting and you say, hey, you know what, folks? This isn't going to work anymore. And they're all going to look at you like, uh-oh. Because these meetings have been chaotic. We haven't gotten anything done. All there's been doing is moaning and complaining the entire time. And I really wonder how it is we ever get anything done. So guess what? Pass out. Here's the written agenda today. It's 30 minutes. This is the agenda, and we're sticking to it. And I'm going to be the meeting lead and the meeting facilitator. And in the future, I'll be the meeting lead, and I'm going to appoint one of you as facilitator, because you're going to be the time check, et cetera. And when we're done with this item, when 10 minutes are up, we're moving on to the next one. So it's going to force us to have the salient comments and conversation to make sure that we can close on a particular item. And oh, by the way, if you think you can, engage in this side talk when we're having a conversation and you're not engaged in a discussion, we're going to call you out on that. Why? Because it's one of the ground rules. You can go online and you can find 100 ground rules for meetings. Do yourselves a favor. Pick about a half a dozen. Pass it out to the team and say, everybody good with these? Give me a little input. Okay, I'll modify this one. I'll change this one. Everybody good with these? Great. These are the ground rules we're going to have. Everybody's opinion counts. Everyone's going to have a say, right? We're going to be here now and have one discussion. There's not going to be any side talk, right? If there is, we're going to call you out on any one of these things. You're going to see how fast things will change if you adhere to that. And you know what? You take the last 2 to 3 minutes of the meeting to say, how are we doing? Did we stay on agenda? Did we follow? Are we following these ground rules or not? And you're not going to do it 100% right the first time. But over time, over a few weeks and a few months, you're going to be amazed how it's going to come together. So structured written agenda, meeting ground rules.
One of the simplest things I ever instituted that helped with meetings in general, and it was bizarre how well it worked, is they went from 90 minutes. So the team that I came in on to consult with, or I don't like that word, but to work with, they had every Monday, they would have a 90-minute key leadership meeting. And it was just, I just sat in the corner for the first few, and I was just like, what, like one person talked for 45 minutes of it. Everybody else was sitting there, like a few other people sitting there twiddling their thumbs. One person you could clearly see was like, why am I here? And the CEO, the one orchestrating it, was kind of like an orchestrator that was way out of their depth, like they're high school, and then they went into at the opera. Like it was just bizarre to watch. and the only thing I was like, okay, for like next week, make it 45 minutes. Let's just see what happens. Like, why we talk for the entire 90 minutes? I'm like, I know, I get it, but no, you talk for 90 minutes and nothing is said. Let's just 45 minutes. Just give it a try. And so they sent out an email on that Tuesday. It's for the next Monday that, hey, it's only going to be 45 minutes. And because everybody knew it was going to be half the time, that alone, I'm not saying this is the only fix, but because they knew that there was half the time, everybody were much more pointed. They're like, okay, we have to get through all this stuff in 45 minutes. Okay, so I can't share my whole life story. I can't complain about all these sort of things. And then they started kind of naturally like, okay, so is this something that we need to talk about right now? We only have like 10 minutes left. Or is this something like, no, I can talk to you about it. Like we can a little ad hoc meeting later and then talk about it. And it ended up working really well, just because work expands or shrinks with the time given to complete it. So that was one thing, again, that you can just, if you can, I guess, like that critical point analysis, if you can change one or two things, that will have the biggest positive effect. Obviously you don't want a negative, biggest positive effect, like start there. And time given for some of these meetings is one of them that I've seen work. I don't know, you might have other thoughts, but yeah.
Well, the biggest gift that you can give back to people is time, right? To go do their jobs. So that's an excellent move. Cut back the time. People will be forced to be more focused, and that's exactly what you found. So look, I don't want people to walk away with the wrong idea. The worst thing you can do is say, oh, we're canceling all meetings.
Oh, yeah.
No, you don't want to do that. Yeah. Meetings are important. They're necessary. Now, I do believe in a lot of what Elon Musk has to say about that, right? If you don't think you're adding value to the meeting, maybe you should leave. Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of good pointers. He really does. Hey, he's a billionaire. He must know what he's doing. one of the best tools that I've ever used too is what I call a leadership meeting calendar. It's not just a meeting calendar, it's a leadership meeting calendar. What are the most important things that we need to talk about as a team that would require us to get together and meet about it, right? Is it daily? Are we running an operation? Because maybe we need a daily call, right? To go over, hey, what did we get done yesterday? What are we going to do today?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't. Maybe you need a weekly meeting, right? Maybe you're in a staff position, you need a weekly meeting or a bi-weekly meeting or a monthly meeting. Okay. What's the agenda? How long is it? What are the topics, right? It's important. Once you have that set up and you set that out for the whole year and you execute on that, I guarantee you will get things done. Because some of those meetings, right, are where you're actually going to be making important decisions. So, right, there's all kinds of meetings. Some are just to inform and advise, hey, what happened over the weekend? Any issues we got to talk about? Some are decision-making meetings. Some are, we're going to hear this important presentation on this new technology. And we're going to be both informed and we might have to make a decision on whether we move forward and allocate some dollars, right, and invest in that technology. So it all depends on the kind of meeting. So set up your leadership meeting calendar. It's important. And then, you know what, every 6 months or year, revise it. What worked about it? Do we really need this meeting anymore? I'm all for, you know what, that was a waste of time. Let's get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. Or let's change the frequency. We used to do it weekly. It's too much. We don't need to. Let's do it every other week. Let's do it every month. And when you can give back that gift of time to people, right? Be focused in your meeting and then give back that gift of time. People talk about being liked. They will like you for that.
No, and there's so much out there about all the different types of meetings. Like there's the daily stand-ups, and then there's your quarterly, and then there's your weekly, and then monthly meetings. And I can't remember what group it is. I think it's the table group, like Patrick Lencioni's table group, or it might be EOS. I can't remember, or both maybe, where they have like all these different meetings that you should that exist and that you should be doing. So like there's the daily stand-up, the weekly, the monthly, the quarterly. Understand your team and where you're at. And if you're a business owner, that's a different thing as well. But understand your team, where you're at, what the goals are, and what some of the strategic initiatives you have. Because if you're in like a phase where like you're doing change management, where you need to identify daily, changes and daily activities and struggles and outcomes. Okay, maybe a daily stand-up is necessary while the change is going on, right? Because what did you do yesterday? Did it work? How was it? What was the outcome? All right, let's make some adjustments, and here's what you can do today. But again, those should be 10 minutes, right? And literally, they're stand-ups for a reason. Don't sit down, stand up. You got to keep everybody engaged. And then, then because we're doing those, do we need a weekly meeting? But just because there are all these meetings, don't just because some other group, cookie cutter group says to do them, don't do them. Look at where your team is and what would be best for the outcomes for them, and then test and measure and be okay with being wrong. Okay, maybe we don't need daily meetings because this seems we do 2 of them and then we seem to talk about the same things every day for the rest of the week. Let's adjust it to weekly or something like that. So we're really identifying kind of where you're at. Sorry, were you gonna say something?
Well, I was just going to, you made me think of, so even in this last example, right? Let's say you got a pretty dysfunctional team and maybe the results aren't where they need to be. So I can remember an instance where I came in new to the company, and this was a company that was spread out over 70,000 square miles, right? Lots of locations, lots of people. I wanted to bring people together, the management team, once a quarter, right? To communicate our scorecard, the direction, initiatives, hear from you, do a Q&A with the leadership team, right? Me and my leadership team up on stage, hearing from 300 or 400 supervisors. What are your issues and concerns? We're accountable to you as a leadership team, right? I can remember one of my directors early on saying, "Don't do it, Greg." I said, "Why not?" You know what? It's expensive. Do you know how much money you're wasting bringing people together? I said, "Money I'm wasting. If that cost me a couple $100,000 to bring those people in, put them up in a hotel room for a night, you can't imagine when I instituted that, how successful it was, Zach. People saw each other for the first time in years, just the social aspect of it. They're like, holy cow, I haven't seen you in years, right? Because they could be working in locations that are hundreds of miles apart. They get together the night before, we had dinner, we had drinks, right? They had a social gathering, and then the next day was all business. The feedback I got on that, people loved coming to those quarterly meetings. I mean, and the value you get out of that, thinking about having almost your entire management team together for one day, and you're getting aligned on where you need to go as a team. Here's the initiatives, here's the results, here's what I expect of you, here's where we're going wrong. And then you and your leadership team being accountable to them as an audience and saying, what are we doing that is making your jobs easier? And what are we doing that's making your job harder that maybe we need to stop doing or do differently? You want to talk about, wow, being accountable to your team. By and large, there's always a few naysayers, but it was one of the best things I ever did. And what happened? Right? Initially, that director said, don't do it. Well, they were part of the problem. They were part of the old culture and why maybe things weren't going as well as they needed to go, right? They were preserving that old way of doing things. So, sometimes you got to go with your gut and your instinct. You know what's worked well. And you could say, hey, thank you for the input. I know you said not to do it, but we're doing it anyway. We'll evaluate it down the road. You can't be afraid. You got to have courage, lots of leadership courage.
Greg Balls of Steel Curley. That's your new name. That's how I'm going to introduce you. I'm just kidding. Well, maybe we'll see. We'll talk about it off there. But
I've heard it before.
This was a brilliant small taste of what you're going to see at the event itself. Greg, I really appreciate you jumping on and going over these case studies. We'll be doing a couple more of these with hopefully a few more of the speakers as well. But again, I really appreciate it. Now go, if you haven't already, I know there's still a few people, X is crushing it right now. There's still a few people on here. If you haven't already, go to YPLSummit.com, get your tickets, and you can see Greg in action himself live. And you can we're going to give him time to do some Q&A afterwards as well, and he'll probably be part of the panel discussions as well. He'll be part of giving you feedback on some of your critical thinking ideas to how you're going to become a more effective leader yourself. But again, Greg, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Absolutely. It was wonderful.
Brilliant. All right. Until next time, everybody, go get your tickets and keep chasing your next summit.